Hi there, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us on the Academy in Air Prepping for the Holidays Audience Solutions. My name is Sean Keeney. I work here in Google with the Accelerated Growth team, working with high growth advertisers in the UK market and who are looking to scale and really maximize the next few months. So I'll be bringing you through a couple of different steps today. Firstly, looking at re-engaging our current customers and visitors on the site, looking at capturing new customers, which again is a crucial goal right now for a lot of businesses, looking at some best practices in terms of creatives and how we reach out to our customers, and then we'll bring everything together and have a bit of a Q&A at the end. So first and foremost, looking at re-engaging your customers and bringing back visitors this holiday season to make sure that they do convert. And we'll look at a couple of a little bit of information here now, first and foremost, to sort of, I suppose, put everything into perspective. So when we look at re-engaging customers and re-engaging site visitors and why that's important, it's very important to look at what the intent is at the minute for customers to purchase. And for a lot, it's not that high compared to, I suppose, a year-round number. Particularly in September and even before then, there's not a huge amount of intent to purchase. There's very much a research phase, and it's building up that research data and sort of, I suppose, for customers trying to understand where they want to purchase from and what gifts they want to get. And for businesses, it's about bringing that customer base into the fold and making them aware of what you offer. But we see, I suppose, as we come into October and particularly the end of October, that intent to purchase gets a lot higher. And particularly in November, it's exceptionally high, alongside December, particularly the first 2 weeks, where there's a huge amount of purchase intent as opposed to the research that's being done, which makes it obviously a much more profitable, but again, a more competitive time. So it's important to be getting ahead of it at times like now, when you can bring that customer into the fold and make them aware of you. So as we said, a huge amount are again searching earlier and earlier and doing the research earlier and earlier. And so, as we said, it's important to just make sure that they are aware of you. And alongside that, looking at after December and sort of the very end of December, or after Christmas and the very end of December, there is a huge amount of purchases going on. It's a traditional sale time. There's always been, I suppose, Boxing Day sales and after Christmas sales where retailers might be getting rid of stock, and customers and the general public are aware of this, and they are, I suppose, the intent to purchase at that time is quite high. So it's also very important to be there at that time. It's not a couple of days around Black Friday and a couple of weeks at the start of December. It is an entire quarter of focus to maximize the return. And then we'll look at, I suppose, why re-engaging is important and how we can maximize it. As we can see, 2 out of 5 mobile shoppers are going to leave without converting on a website. It's because a lot of the research can be done on your mobile, and it's normally a first port of call for customers to look and research brand they're looking into. So it tends to, as we can see with the next stat, the first interaction tends to not be one that's converted on. 2 to 4 websites of research is what we would see in general. So it's important to be there at the multiple stages of that, and we'll look at that with audience. And again, I suppose, looking at the research phase and just kind of really hammering that point home of making sure that now in October or earlier, you're there for a customer that is researching, and that you're taking advantage of not just shopping, where I suppose the inclination of a lot of retailers is to do so and to focus solely on shopping. Search is still a huge element of that and a huge element of the research phase. It adds additional real estate, but it also gives those customers who might not necessarily know exactly what product they want to purchase a more general view of things. And it's important to be there, because that's sort of the mindset of a lot of customers over the research phase. So bringing them in with search initially can lead to sales further down the line and longer term customers. And as well as that, I suppose it's important to hammer home the point on smartphones. So while a lot of customers might not, or while a lot of yourselves might not necessarily feel they're getting as good a return off smartphones, at the end of the day, it's a huge growing element of the impression share of how people are interacting online. And it's massively important to be there, particularly now, while a lot of research is being done. And over Black Friday, and I suppose the holiday season in general, where smartphones tend to be the go-to for some people and a lot of people, and it's more and more changing. And so if you're not there, I suppose initially with smartphones, it's hard to then get back into that customer's buying cycle. So we'll look at a bit of a timeline now, and I suppose just a couple of points to note at different periods of, I suppose, the next couple of months. So for it to look, I suppose, if we're starting the early October phase, around now, early to mid-October, we want to be launching our holiday seasons. If you have specific shopping campaigns, if you're launching new shopping campaigns or new products, or new search-specific campaigns, you want to be doing so now so that we can understand how the performance is, and we can sort of iterate on it and iron out, as I said, the kinks that are in the campaign and can be there at the start. If you were to wait 2 weeks and then to start a campaign, by the time you fully understand the performance, we'll be in the middle of Black Friday, in the middle of that cyber weekend. And it's very hard to sort of improve on anything if you're not sure of how the performance should be. It's very hard to kind of get an accurate base of what you can expect. So by launching now, and the next week or so, you're able to get a full understanding of the performance. You're able to improve on the performance, and that allows you to, I suppose, maximize the cyber weekend and onwards after that point. Looking at early November, we want to have our specific creatives in place. We want to have, specific deals. For running deals, we want those creatives ready to go. If we have next day shipping, anything like that, making our customers aware and being able to stand out is massively important so that we can really maximize that period. Having them ready in early November, being able to launch them whenever our sale begins or over the weekend, just means that we're not scrambling at a hugely busy time. Then look at mid-November, and having that sort of, I suppose, that meeting and that thought process around budgets and frequency caps. So coming into, I suppose, mid-November, you don't want to miss any auctions because the purchase intent, as we saw earlier, is incredibly high. So if you are not showing, if you're limited by budget, if you are not indexing as much as you can on your customers, you're missing out on sales. So by looking at uncapping budgets completely, we can make sure we're maximizing who we're reaching. And I would argue as well that if you are seeing limited by budgets at any point really in November, you have to have that thought process of uncapping at that point, because again, the purchase intent is so high. If you think about it this way, you've done the research, or you've done the work and brought in those researchers over the last 2-3 months where the conversion rate might not have been as good. This is where you're actually reaping those benefits. And by being limited by budget, you're handicapping yourself. I suppose you're working with one hand behind your back. So it's just an important thought process and conversation to have. And if we look, I suppose, narrow down a bit more, November 24th to 27th, we've got Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Just hugely important to be aware of those days and plan ahead and have your strategy in place. And we look after that point, and early December is still a hugely important part of the puzzle, I suppose, for businesses. You have a much higher purchase intent as opposed to research intent. So more of the searches are going to lead to sales. And that's the point to be very aware of, is that we still have to maximize after Black Friday and maximize that early December, those 2 to 3 weeks, which is hugely important. And as well as that, the creatives around delivery times are huge and massive right in that period, because customers become more and more anxious about their product not arriving on time. So if you're able to guarantee, 2-day shipping, 1-day shipping, even 3 or 4 day shipping, if you can make them aware of that, that means there's a lot less anxiety around purchasing from yourselves. And it just means that you're not, you're not limiting how many sales you can get. And then we'll look at the late December, kind of the 4 or 5 days after Christmas, early January, as still, again, a great period to maximize and move stock and capitalize on the high purchase intent from customers. It will probably be the highest sort of purchase intent for a lot of customers until this time next year. So it's important to maximize that. And we've got, I suppose, a couple of points just to have a think about before you put your holiday strategy into action and you kind of finalize it. So first and foremost, who were my most valuable customers last season? Was it repeat customers who then came back, really like the site, you have a high loyalty level? Was it cart abandoners who, I suppose, were in that research phase and we were able to drive a huge action from them? Or was it a specific demographic, a specific, I suppose, interest type? If you can understand that, you can kind of, I suppose, get a feel for who to really focus on this year. And we'll then look at, I suppose, it's important to take into account who converted during your most recent promotions. So as opposed to last year, has your customer base changed? And if so, in what way? If you can understand that, again, you can find the sort of key customer grouping that you want to over-index on. And then we'll look at who's on my site at the minute, but isn't converting. Because these very much could be your researchers, your customers who are about to come into a phase of high purchase intent. And if you can identify them, again, index on them, that means you can drive as much sales as possible and have as successful a period as possible. So we'll have a look at the funnel. And it's a really important tool for phrasing and, I suppose, planning out how you're going to interact with those customers, how you're going to capture them. First, I suppose, first point to look at is the lowest of the funnel, the most performance driven. So it's driving action, it's growing loyalty. This will come through remarketing or customer match. And this is a massive part of any Black Friday strategy and any Q4 retail strategy, to really over-index and capture as much of these customers as possible, because they are most likely to purchase. That can come from, in terms of driving action, category visitors, product visitors, cart abandoners, anybody on your site who hasn't converted, who was very, very close to converting. We want to capture as much of that as possible. We want to make sure when they're searching, we're there, and we want to make sure that we're continually reminding them that we are here. And we'll look at that a little bit later as well. And we're looking to grow loyalty. So customers who have purchased in the past are happy with the service, are happy with what they received, the delivery was on time, they were happy with the price. These are customers who, when they are looking to purchase, are very, very close. And it's a huge audience to continually index on, because you want to be growing that audience always so that overall sales can grow. But particularly in Q4, when we're looking at driving as much transactions as possible and as many of them, past purchasers are a huge element of this. And we'll look, I suppose, a little bit higher up in the funnel, so a little bit further away from necessarily purchase intent, but looking at influencing customers who, I suppose, are thinking about possibly purchasing, aren't really sure. We can look at product viewers or customers who are visiting our Christmas section, our sales section in the last month, in the last few days. Those customers are close to purchasing, and we'd want to try and focus on driving action as much as possible with them. And then we look at, I suppose, a little bit higher up in the funnel. So customers who are not necessarily in the market to purchase, they're not about to, and I suppose it's not that we're influencing customers who are going to purchase, it's that we're influencing potential customers who haven't thought about it yet. And this is huge, and can be really powerfully done through YouTube, a medium where the vast majority of videos are watched with the sound on, where you can engage a customer, where you can, I suppose, educate them on what you offer and why you are different to any other competitor. And by doing this to customers and potential customers, it opens up your pool of sales and of who you can drive sales from massively. And again, makes them aware so that come Black Friday, when they go to purchase, and they'll recognize your name, they'll understand what you offer and what you're about. And at that stage, with the purchase intent so high, they're much more likely to purchase. A couple of, I suppose, quick tips and points to take into account is making sure that you have remarketing lists and audience lists that have a longer period than 30 days. You want customers who are researching in October and then purchasing in December to stay on that list so that you can maximize and over-index on them. If you have a short period and short window where those customers are on a list, it limits who you're bringing into the fold. Similarly, and in that same vein, consider creating a 540-day converters list. What this will allow you to do is capture all of those customers that in the next month, in the next 2 months, are going to be purchasing, and make sure that anytime you have a promotion or anytime there's an opportunity to bring them back into the fold, you're capturing it. Because it's a hugely powerful list of customers who will be engaged, who will know what the brand is about, and who will be comfortable purchasing. And so anytime there is an excuse for them to purchase, we want to make sure they're aware of it. And alongside that, and looking at, I suppose, maximizing your audience strategy. So looking at bids and budgets, which is important. Simply adding these audiences on and sort of allocating more of an existing budget to them is great. But if that budget is heavily limited, if there's a huge amount more of these customers to go after, I suppose we're sticking ourselves and we're not giving ourselves the opportunity to maximize. And as I spoke about, we've done the work bringing these researchers into the fold. Let's maximize that and let's capture that intent. As well as that, it's important to be aware of the competition that's going to increase. It's going to be a lot harder to get in front of customers if we're using the same bids, the same sort of criteria. We want to make sure that we're sure of these customers and that we know that they're going to purchase, so that we can really over-index on them. As we show here, bids can go up to 140% increase over the rest of the year. So there's so much more competition and so much, I suppose, more fighting for these customers, that it's important to just know who you're fighting for and really over-index on them. And then it's also important, I suppose, just to keep an eye on your impression share. Make sure that you are capturing that chunk of the market that you want. If you start to see your impression share fall, it's largely because of bids increasing. And you can look at some of our other Academy on Airs that focus on automated bidding that can help with this hugely. So while looking at those over-indexing on those existing customers on search, it's very important to capture them on display as well. So while customers might do their research and then come on Black Friday to purchase, if you are, for instance, running an early sale, running a sale, a small sale a week before Black Friday, going after these customers will allow you to capture sales and avoid that increase, that 140% bid increase, while still bringing that customer in and still building your sales. Smart bidding is smart display campaigns are a massive way of doing this, being fully automated and working towards your goals. they simplify the display network, and with the display network being a relatively complicated area to capture, they make it very so much more easy, so much easier, and allow you to focus on other elements of the account, and are a massive opportunity to drive sales for yourselves. So we've looked at, I suppose, our existing customers and really capturing them. And now we'll look a little bit about how we can grow our customer base. So for those customers that maybe haven't done the research, or maybe haven't found yourselves when they're doing that research, there's still time to capture them and to drive sales from them. So while customers are doing research, they're very open to purchasing off new retailers. Considering sales are on, it's an ideal opportunity to sample different, I suppose, styles and what different retailers offer. As we can see here, 50% last year sampled new retailers that they hadn't spot from before. And this is, I suppose, where the influence consideration, where the build awareness, the topper end of the funnel is. And it's influencing those customers that haven't purchased from you yet, that haven't found you, and driving those sales. This can be done through in-market audiences, audience keywords, similar audiences, which is a very much a performance-driven end of this. From an influencing point of view, so customers who are already there. And we can look at build awareness, grabbing customers who haven't necessarily thought about purchasing, but are in that same, I suppose, demographic and same type of person as would normally purchase from yourself. We'd look at that through demographics and through affinity audiences, whether they be set or custom. So I suppose the first step, and if you're looking to expand that audience, the first step is looking at similar audiences, picking out a very similar person to an existing converter has a very high likelihood of driving a good return and good sales volume. Similar to product viewers, or category viewers, this is the type of customer that's more likely to purchase from you and that already has. And so grabbing these customers when they may necessarily haven't visited your site or haven't seen you, is just capturing a slightly bigger part of the pie every time. And then we can also look at capturing the characteristics of a customer. So what does your average converter look like? Well, their age, gender, interests, and trying to understand that, and then targeting that type of person to really capture as much of that audience as possible. So we can hear with similar audiences is a relatively manual process, and we can look to use something like, again, smart display campaigns to capture new customers, as well as bring existing customers into the fold. They will look to drive and to put all of those characteristics into play that the similar audiences will use, that we would use by looking at an audience insight report or an analytics account. And take all that together and get a full understanding of what a customer looks like. And so again, a hugely powerful tool for yourselves to take advantage of. And now if we're to look at who we would look to capture and what type of customer would that be? In-market audiences are really about capturing customers who have a high intent or a high awareness of what you offer, but have not necessarily found you yet. And so this would be your first port of call for influencing new customers. Whether that be through, I suppose, the set lists like Google has created, to go into a lot of detail, or creating a specific list for yourself that you feel better caters to your customer base. You can educate yourself on who your customer would be, who your in-market customer would be, through looking at the audience insights reports in AdWords. You can look at the audience of your converters list and understand the demographic, the gender, as well as the in-market audiences that they would fit into and index on. And that allows you, I suppose, to better pick your in-market audiences, better build them yourself, and better target new customers and influence them. And it is important to understand that trying to bring new customers, someone who's never seen your site before, will take time. We looked earlier, and it's customers will on average look at 2 to 4 new websites before purchasing. There is that consideration phase. So you can't expect the same CPA or ROAS as your existing customers and your returning customers. But these are new customers to your brand. They're expanding your sales volume. They're expanding your revenue. So it's important to give them a little bit more leeway and still focus on capturing them. And now we'll look at a bit of creative best practices and just making sure you are putting that right message out there for your new customers. So first and foremost, making sure you're tailoring your ads to the season that's in it, whether that be with your deals, your discounts, whether that be with delivery information, etc. Just making people aware that that you're focused on Christmas, that you're focused right now, and giving them incentives and calls to action. It's very important. You do want to do this by filtering them into existing creatives. You don't want to pause your existing creatives. You want to add in new ads with this additional content and additional ad copy in it. That will just allow AdWords to rotate those ads in and start to show those ads for seasonal searches, and I suppose drive the best performance while not sacrificing what you're doing at the minute. A phenomenal tool for this would be responsive search ads, which have just recently been released to all customers. They offer you the opportunity of putting in multiple messages into one ad and allowing AdWords to optimize towards the best message for that customer. It's sort of the next step on our optimized ad rotation, but gives you huge, I suppose, variety and the amount of descriptions and headlines that you have, and allows you to drive some great performance increase. And we tend to see between 5 and 15% increase in the click-through rate based on the superior performance they can drive. And similarly on the display network, it's very important to use responsive display ads to capture your customers. Responsive display ads are able to tailor it towards the format, the size that's available on that site. So you're able to go after your customer wherever they are, which really is the focus of the display network. As well as that, particularly for something like product viewers or lower funnel audiences, we're able to tailor and show them what they were looking at, which is a hugely important tool to drive. And if you're looking at a product and it's then shown to you, you might have wanted to purchase, but just couldn't quite at the time, that's an option to go back and purchase directly off the site. And we can see a couple of examples of the ads and how well they fit into, I suppose, the website, and how they aren't intrusive. They're very much, they look like they are part of what is there at the minute. Couple of key points to look at for your creatives. Make sure you are optimizing for ad rotation. It is important to put the right message in front of different customers, and evenly rotating will hurt that. Particularly right now when there are different levels of intent. Some people might not necessarily want to purchase on Black Friday. They might be waiting till Christmas. And it's important to show people the right ads, whether that be showing them a Christmas ad or showing someone who's looking for Black Friday deals a Black Friday ad. Rather than simply creating new ads, if you have old content from previous promotions that fits or from last year, be prepared to use that, because again, with information, they can ramp quite quickly. And then as well as that, for something on the display network, either use display ads, display responsive display ads, or cover as much of the inventory as possible. But again, we would very much recommend using the responsive display ads. It's going to maximize your reach, which is very important right now. A couple of points to really avoid. Don't look to pause all of your creative assets and put in new, I suppose, holiday assets in. It's going to result in poor performance in the short term. While that performance might increase, right now we're into very much performance-driven phase of the year, and it's important to just maximize that. So keeping your existing assets and expanding on them would be the goal and would be the recommendation. And very much don't drop bids if you're adding in new creatives. When you are adding in your Christmas creatives, make sure they have the ability to get traffic, to get impressions, and for AdWords to understand how they're going to perform and where they're going to perform. It's a very important point. So just in summary, focus on engaging your existing customers, creating the content for those customers, but making sure you're indexing as much as possible on those customers that you're sure are going to purchase. Because again, bids can become very, very competitive on Black Friday and in the periods that follow. So it's important to make sure you can over-index on your customers and capture that impression share. Making sure, consider looking at new customers, upper funnel audience solutions, as we spoke about, whether that be through in-market audiences, smart display campaigns, looking at YouTube. They're tools that can expand your customer base, which is a huge opportunity, particularly now when the purchase intent is increasing so much. Look to match your bids, budgets, make sure that you are capturing as much of the audience as possible and you're maximizing your return over this period. And make sure to tailor your creative solution as well, your creatives to your audience, providing past purchasers with new information, making sure that coming up to the Christmas period, you have delivery information there. Make sure your Black Friday sale is part of your creative assets. Now we'll have a bit of a Q&A. And we will hopefully have a couple of questions just to go through here. So the first question we have is, what could be the best strategy for shopping ads for the holiday season? And is target CPA really effective? So there's two separate sides of that there. So with your shopping, what's going to be very effective is the smart shopping campaigns. We have a couple of Academy on Airs looking at that. One particularly that I actually ran, focus on preparing that for the holiday season. We're very confident that our automated bidding will grow with the increase in traffic that's there and the increase in bids. And so it's important to make sure that you are trusting automation to change those bids on the fly, because as we said, bids can increase 140%. over any other peaks of the year. So it's very hard to keep up with that yourself and continually increase the bids. So to avoid missing that impression share, look to use automated bidding with shopping. Smart shopping campaigns will firstly really help to drive performance from the shopping end of things, but they will also bring that display remarketing into the fold. So you're looking at a full funnel solution there of customers who are considering purchasing, interacting, and then influencing those customers to purchase and going to them. It's massively important over Black Friday to be after these customers and to be driving that return. So that's what I would recommend, is smart shopping campaigns that can help drive some great performance. And then, is target CPA really effective? Very much so. So we would expect target CPA to perform over this period. It's this peak. What it's important to take into account is that effectively, while the bids are going to increase, the purchase intent is also going to increase. and target CPA is going to work off driving sales at that certain price. So if someone is all of a sudden it's going to cost twice as much to show to them, but they're also twice as likely to purchase, which can very much be the case. There's no reason target CPA won't take into account that and just basically, I suppose, expand with the increase in searches for your products. You can look to move the targets, whether increase the target CPA 5 to 10%, or decrease the ROAS 5 to 10% to increase to increase the amount of auctions it can enter and to really capitalize on the the increase in customers. The in-market audience, how are customers categorized and what's the time period of intent? So with in-market audiences, the customers are categorized just based on their intent, based on their searches, based on their general interactions with, I suppose, Google and what they're searching for, what they are looking into, and how likely we would consider them to purchase. So we'd be very confident that they would purchase. A way to test that would be to add these audiences onto something like your search campaigns without a bid to begin with. So if, for instance, you sell, fine jewelry, you could say, look at an in-market audience for fine jewelry, add that to a search campaign and start to understand then the sort of CPA that would drive without a bid adjustment, and then look to put a bid adjustment on that yourself once you sort of understand. And if you're to do that now, you'll have that information again, making these changes now, you'll have that information come a couple of weeks, a week before Black Friday, and you'll be able to act on that. Now, another question just focuses on AAA games, the online retailers. So for this, custom intent audiences barely work, despite the fact that products are known and prices are competitive. So with custom intent audiences, it's very important to make sure that the customers, it's very important to make sure that the list includes a wide range of customers, and a wide range of indicators to build from. So we'd recommend 10 to 15 either keywords or websites in separate lists. So we'd want only keywords in one list, only websites in another list. We'd want 15 at least of them, really, to build a full understanding of the customer. That's what we'd recommend. That's one way to focus on trying to improve those custom intent audiences. But it is about experimenting as well at the same time, and trying to understand which elements will work. And then just another question on the 540-day past converters audience. So are there any other audiences you would recommend creating to enhance re-engagement? Well, firstly, so past converters is the first one. Past converters who maybe purchased more than one product. That means we have a repeat customer. They're very likely to continue repeating. 7-day users, 1-day users. Again, if someone looked at your site, looked at a couple of other sites, and then didn't purchase and then searched again the next day, their intent is immensely high. So look to drive those customers back and index on those customers. The 540-day past converters is very much trying to capture that sort of long-term customer and bring them back. These would be more a little bit short-term. So if someone was to purchase now and then look to search over Black Friday, they know what we offer, they know our prices, they know our delivery arrangement, and they're happy with it in the past. So if they are to then search again, they will know about it. So if they were happy and they click, they're likely to purchase. If they weren't happy, they're very much not likely to click. So it's a good opportunity there to drive some good returns. But really, it's focusing on your product viewers, your category viewers, and how people interact with the site. If people spend quite a lot of time, if they view X amount of products, or if they view certain products, view particular high value products or products with great sales volume. Look to create lists of customers who visit them and make sure you bring them back. So that's everything, guys. That is all the questions we have for today. Thank you so much for joining in and listening, and thank you so much for the questions. And I would encourage you, we've a number of other Academy on Airs to look at, and have a listen to some of them. Again, some of them focus on automated search, shopping for the holiday season, and have a listen to them and see if any of them, I suppose, resonate with yourselves. Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. That's everything.